everybody, and thanks for joining us on another week of the Rec Poker Podcast, Chats Edition. I'm your host, Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game, and I'd like to thank our wonderful sponsors, Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and everything that Website Mark does over there at Website Amp. So as you know, every week we join a panel of recreational poker wizards, and we have our premium members in the chat here. So I'd like to welcome Jim and Martha in the chat, and I'm sure we'll get a couple more there. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and we can ask them of the one and only RR, who we'll get into here in just a second. Before we do, panel, why don't you introduce yourselves and let Rec Poker Nation know where they can get a hold of you?
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me on 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 on PokerStars.
And I'm John Somsky. I am Poker Geek MN everywhere.
And I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
And like I said, I'm Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game. And if you want to learn about me, you can go to rec.poker/crew, where you can click on all these smiling faces, everyone on the Rec and crew down there, not just me, but a bunch of other folks that all contribute to making Rec Poker a wonderful place. And if you don't know what Rec Poker is, all it takes is an email address and a smile to get signed up for a free account. Go to rec.poker and find a place to hang out with people that want to learn along like you, play along, find your rail. We have a lot of fun talking about poker and learning together. Speaking about learning together, I want to give a couple shout outs before we get going. First of all, to Roger Schutte, who has been working on us on our podcast here quite a bit for the last few months. And I just wanted to give him the recognition that he deserves. Roger, thank you so much for all that you do, putting this together and mixing and adding images and that kind of thing. It makes a big difference for us and for the listeners. So Roger Schutte, you are the man. And I'd also like to thank Adam Wolf, who recently became a premium Rec Poker member and attended his first Aura as a premium member. So we had a lot of fun talking about his success in the Tournament Champions. And Rob Brereton, who recently joined our Patreon community. So thank you so much, Rob. It helps us a lot to have people go over to Patreon and just buy us a cup of coffee and help us keep the lights on over here and keep us having as much fun as we do. So that's a lot of people involved in Rec Poker. One of the people that we're going to be talking to on the show here, the star of tonight, Remko Rinkema himself. We love talking to people in the world of poker because you have such a unique perspective on everything that goes on here. And I know our recreational players are going to want to pick your brain a little bit. So Remko, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
And you said you were calling in from Nevada. You're never far from Mecca. Is that my understanding?
Absolutely. Without traffic, I'll be at any poker room within 15 minutes, which is always a good spot to be in. And loving life here in Las Vegas, even though I live in Henderson. But hey, no one's keeping track of that, right?
That's right. No, your secret's safe with just us here. The word won't get out, I promise. Now, you've taken quite an interesting path to get to where you are today. And I think, is it fair to refer to you as a poker media personality? When people ask you, like, what do you do for a living? How do you describe your work and your position and your place in the poker world?
Yeah, it's funny. I sort of look at myself as like a jack of all trades. I've done almost everything in the game of poker besides playing at a high level. Very mediocre at the game. I play all games. I play them all very mediocre at a very mediocre level, but I do enjoy the game, and I have been since early 2006. That's when I discovered the game of poker. But yeah, poker media personality, that works for me. Even though I've sort of stepped away from the media side with my new role at PokerGO, which, if anyone has questions about PokerGO, please, fire them at me. I know there's always a lot of confusion or misunderstandings about how certain things work, and I'm more than happy to answer some of those questions. But yeah, ever since the pandemic started, roughly, I became the senior media manager, and before that, I was the senior editor. So before that, I was doing a lot more writing, covering a lot more events, and all of this, of course, dates back to 2006 when I got into the game of poker, and I slowly started first translating articles for the PokerNews Netherlands website. Funny side note, I want to say the 12-part article series about Archie Karras on PokerNews.com was one of the first articles that I translated to Dutch. And then I did EPT live reporting from home watching the EPT live stream for quite a while before covering my first ever live event back in '08, which was EPT Prague. So from there on out, it sort of got out of hand year after year. Things escalated. I quit a job thinking that this poker thing is going to be for real, and then there were some downturns, some upturns, but ultimately I managed to turn it into a really nice career, and I'm lucky to say that I now live in Las Vegas. So what else can you ask for?
Yeah, I mean Henderson, but whatever. Yeah,
whatever. So, we promised not to mention that.
So I want to go back to that first part of that story there, because we've had people on the show, many people, Kevin Mathers, Chad McVean, recently, that sort of just started doing something they loved in the world of poker, and then that kind of led to a career. So can you tell us a little bit about like that first step in? What made you feel like you had a way into this poker world? And I mean, I know you enjoyed poker, but what made you feel like there was room for you, and how did you create that room for yourself at the very beginning as an outsider? Right.
It's a very good question. So to go all the way back, when I discovered the game of poker, the poker boom in the Netherlands was just taking off. So like 05, 06, it was a little bit later than in the US. We had a TV show called Poker Kings, and it was Noah Boken and Marcel Lusk traveling the world, and this big budget production company, they did a whole year of following them around on the tour. So that sort of sparked my interest in the game, and I joined the Dutch Poker News forum. And as many people that love, recreational poker or poker of all levels and sort of enjoy the game from the sidelines as far as the big buy and stuff, they love coming together in a community. And for me, that was the Dutch Poker News Forum, where because of my presence there, I became a moderator pretty quickly, and established sort of a reputation as someone who really cared. And we do these things like we'd have members of our forum going deep in online events on Stars and Full Tilt back in the day, and we'd have like a real thread on our forum. We'd post hands, we discuss hands, and all that stuff. So that not only connected me with a lot of people, but it also made me a better player. And I, if I was ever ahead of the curve, I probably peaked as a poker player back in 2009 and 10, where I actually made decent money playing poker, did really well, had a few deep runs in scoop events. So that basically was the arc of my life sort of in poker. But as far as working, I was going to journalism school when I discovered the game of poker, or just before I discovered the game of poker. And in journalism school, my goal was to become a sports writer and a sports journalist. So that already ties in very directly with doing stuff like live reporting. So then when I got a chance to translate some articles, because, I was into poker, I know how to write, so that was sort of an easy thing. My next step in my mind was, well, I'll do anything I can for any money. I'll even lose money on it if I can just be in a casino while there's a tournament going on. So what that turned into was the 2008 Master Classics of Poker in Amsterdam. So prior to that, I had been to several organized events in casinos in the Netherlands, and casinos are state owned. I think there's 12 of them. None of them that have poker were near where I lived, and that's of course on a scale of the Netherlands, which is a very small country. But still, taking a 2-hour train ride to go to a casino was a pretty big deal. And I just turned 21, so actually, that was a few years before that. But I was still very young, so that was a pretty big deal to me. So anyway, 2008 Masterclasses of Poker. I was working at a bank, doing customer support because I still lived at home, trying to make it as a poker player, playing online poker. My parents said, you can stay here as long as you have a job. So I worked a job, customer support, played poker basically all night, and then went back to work. Now, 2008 Master Classics rolls around, and Frank Obdewoord, better known as Web Joker, he reached out to me and he said, hey, I need someone to write about the Master Classics. Can you do live reporting? And I'm like, sure. I had no idea what I was talking about.
No, but you don't say no when that kind of moment comes up, right? You just say yes and.
So I told my boss at the bank, I said, hey, I need the next 5 days off or whatever. And it's in the Netherlands, that stuff's pretty lenient. So they said, sure, go ahead. So I show up there, and after the first day, I knew this is what I want to do. This is just phenomenal. Walking around the casino, taking notes, writing hands, and I was very passionate, very driven from the start. So when the Master Classics ended, Frank told his boss, like, hey, I know we have a guy right now, but this Remko guy seems, better, faster, all that stuff. So he said, can we hire him instead? And, boss agreed. And 4 days later, I was on a plane to Prague, and I'd quit my job. So
wow.
I just jumped in it head first. also, and I get this question a lot from people, how do I get into poker? The first couple of years, I made almost zero money. Like I lived with my parents. I was in my early 20s, and all I did was work. I grinded my ass off, so to say. I did every single EPT. We did the Unibet Open. I went to the World Series of Poker. We did a bunch of, random sort of independent tournaments. We did a lot of the casino events in the Netherlands. But basically, it was whatever I could get my hands on, I would do. And then I started writing some more features, doing some articles. My first WSOP was in 2009. Haven't missed one since. So I've been to a lot of the World Series of Poker events. So that's how it all started. And then in 2011, my now good friend Donnie Peters, who is also a coworker at PokerGO, he gave me a chance to do live reporting in English. Because keep in mind, until then, everything I was doing was in Dutch. So 2011 World Series of Poker Europe in Cannes, France was my first ever tryout doing English reporting for PokerNews.com. Wow. And that then grew into where I am now. So that's sort of the short of it. And of course, lots of international trips in between. And I personally think that I got super lucky in a few spots. But at the same time, as I said, the first few years, I literally just said yes to everything. And I just went all over the world, which was awesome.
And it just goes to show, being available, being enthusiastic, and I think also being fun to work with. Having people want to work with you is a non-trivial factor when it comes to this kind of stuff. And then I know talk a little bit about how that translated into Remko Media and what that transition was like.
Yeah, so as I was freelancing with the PokerNews.com website, I was still doing the Dutch work on the side, but it sort of grew to be more and more. And at the time, I met a girl, and she was living in South Korea as an English teacher. That gave me an opportunity to be more in the Asia Pacific region. And there's not a lot of competition there as far as, available bloggers and reporters, because a lot of the guys from that market had quit or moved on or weren't available. So for a whole year, I basically covered all the events in Asia and in Australia. I went to APPT, NZPT, Aussie Millions, all those events. This is in 2012. And that's when I realized I can do this full time and actually make a living, because I was making enough money at that point, 2012, where I was like, I can take this seriously. It can become a career. All I have to do now is, make a bit more money per event, keep my schedule full, and then I'll be fine. And that's when I had a discussion with Donnie to also start doing my own podcast, which I can't remember when exactly that was, but I started doing the Remko Report, which is a one-on-one interview show that took off, and it did really well for the time that I did it for Poker News. And then there's a funny side story that sort of helped me get to where I am now with PokerGO. I want to say it was 2014 or 2015. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it's 2015. It was the year Ivy won his 10th bracelet. That year, Lynn Gilmartin had moved on to the World Poker Tour. Christy Arnett, I think, had quit to play poker professionally. So Sarah Herring hired a bunch of new hostesses to do the videos. And I believe that didn't work out, or some quit, or I don't know. There was some drama happening. And then all of a sudden, because I had done videos in Dutch with my buddy Frank, they're like, hey, Remko, can you hold the microphone? Can you ask some questions? And I was like, same thing as a few years prior. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And still zero clue what to do. And that was wildly intimidating, because doing the Dutch interviews, those are all players that I knew from the tour. Those are people that I'd hung out with a ton. Now, all of a sudden, I was standing in front of Jason Mercer, and I was like super intimidated. My first ever interview was Amnon Felipe. It was the first ever American player that I interviewed. So basically, that summer in 2015, all of a sudden, I was doing a whole bunch of videos, and some of them were doing very well. If some of you guys remember, I did Ivy stories where, Phil Ivey was telling all sorts of random stories about his past. The epic one with Raymond Davies, where he talks about how Ivy saved the poker world. All this stuff was just hilarious, culminating in Ivy winning his 10th bracelet, and in I want to say it was $1,500 horse, some kind of mixed game event. And I'm covering the 10K stud. Still live reporting was my main gig. Donnie messaged me on Skype at the time. He goes, where are you? And I said, tan section Amazon room, covering the stud. He goes, you need to come over right now. Ivy just won his 10th bracelet, and there's no one else to interview him. And I was like, oh my God, am I just going to interview Phil Ivey for Poker News? This is like the biggest thing that could possibly happen. So I'm shaking. I'm nervous. I'm sweating. And at the time, at the WSOP, this was in the front section of the Amazon room. They had a section to the right when you walk into the room, where they had a set of bleachers set up so people could watch those final tables. And Ivy won his bracelet sitting right there. But there was about 100 people watching in person And this year, there was hardly anyone in the stands. That year, there was tons of people in the stands. So I'm sitting there with my microphone, doing my interview with Ivy, and at the very end of the interview, you can still see this. It's still on YouTube. He goes, hold up, as I'm about to sign off. So I just I just sink through the ground, and I just want to disappear. And he looks at me, and then he looks at the camera, and he goes, some of those stories that you've been covering about me, those are not true, especially the one with Raymond Davies. So I was like, Ivy watches my videos. This is amazing. This is so funny. But that really sort of jump started me doing more and more videos, and I got to practice a lot, which is very important. And I'm forgetting a whole subsection of what that also entailed, because I ended up doing the podcast with Donnie and Jason Somerville for the whole summer for the Poker News podcast for many years. But a very long story short, my biggest advantage that I had was that I was able to get a lot of reps in doing a lot of these things, live reporting, writing features, and then doing podcasts, and then ultimately also being on camera. And anyone who listens to this right now, if you record your own voice and listen back to it, you're like, oh my God, do I really sound like that? That sounds terrible. Well, I felt that way first too, but the only reason I got good at podcasting was because I was listening to myself over and over and over again, being very aware of what I sound like, being very aware of how I speak, and trying to eliminate things like and what and like and all those sort of short words that you're trying to eliminate. So anyway, that's like sort of like a summary of all the stuff that I've been up to.
Well, I know John has a question, but I got to ask one just quick in the meantime. So I and all the time, and I stutter a bit. And so what are some ways that I and the rest of the panel here can actually work on that and make our orations better, more professional?
So for me, it's about speaking actively, like thinking about what you're saying as you're saying it.
Oh, that's not a good sign then. Okay.
So for me, that comes down to being more aware in the moment that I'm speaking. And to some people, this might make zero sense, but to me, this is important to do in my mind. So when I'm doing an on-camera piece, I did a real talk show for PokerGO, which I thought turned out very well. I was extremely nervous, but all I was focused on was, what am I going to say? Where am I going to go with this? And what that means is you're not thinking about what you're saying in a sense of, where am I going with this? No, you already know where you're going. You're just thinking about how you're going to deliver it. And I think that's very important. Nice.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I've been a fan of yours ever since you first did your first podcast. I am a voracious listener to podcasts, and the Remko Report was one of my favorites.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
And, I think the thing that came through, it was obvious to anyone listening, was your passion for the game. And I think that is one of the key things that has propelled you to where you are. And I also have to say, your accent is much less noticeable than it used to be.
Yes.
So true. Is that just from living in the US or?
No, it's from listening to myself speak, honestly. It's just from listening over and over again, editing my own audio and being aware of how I say certain things. There's still, if you catch me on a bad day, or, if I have a few beers in me, I will drop off. But that goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's active speaking. I'm very aware of my speaking, which I think helps. And in general, it makes me a more confident person. If I go to the car dealership to negotiate, I'm in that same mode. I'm just actively thinking about what I'm speaking, how I'm delivering it. So, it's a lot of practice.
Well, I think it's clear that you are definitely a welcomed addition to the poker world.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
Chris?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about PokerGO. I just, first of all, I just wanted to congratulate you and everyone there. I thought the series coverage this year was just phenomenal. The main event coverage was like the best it's ever been. It was just, I couldn't sort of peel myself away. I lost hours and nights of time kind of going through all that coverage. And I'm just wondering if you can kind of take for people who maybe either have PokerGO or don't have PokerGO, should have PokerGO, all those people out there, take us behind the curtain about the operation, what your role is there, and what it takes to put on an event of that scale with that kind of quality.
Well, So to answer my part first, which is very easy, I'm responsible for every single video you see on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. That's my responsibility. I pick the videos, I pick the titles, the thumbnails, all that stuff. So that the curation of all that stuff from soup to nuts, that's all me. So that's, if you want to yell at someone over videos on those platforms, come find me. And I'll happily take your criticism. And funny side note, a couple months ago, someone said, "Oh, PokerGO, you're stupid. You deleted all these videos off YouTube." And I'm like, "You're correct. However, what was the video you were looking for?" And he said, "Well, this one very particular hand from the 2013 main event." And I was like, "Okay, I'll put it back up." And 2 days later, we had it back on our YouTube channel. The reason they all got taken down is because when we acquired the rights to the World Series of Poker, we uploaded all the content that we then had the ownership of to our YouTube rights manager. And then it just starts auto striking all the channels that have that content uploaded. So 99% of all those strikes were all automatic based on us now having the rights to it. And the same goes for Facebook, by the way. So that's where that comes from. So if there's a favorite hand that you're missing out on, or if there's a moment from the WSOP or high stakes poker you can't find, just shoot me a DM on Twitter at Remko Rinkema, and I'll probably find a way to put it back up. Maybe not now, maybe not next week, but I'll add it to the queue, because we are releasing 7 videos a day, 7 days a week, every morning, to create that community and that space where you can find all those highlights. So that is what I'm responsible for. And I take that very seriously because I'm a big fan of the game myself as well. So, for some context, prior to us having all that stuff on there, there was a big goal of like, how do we get all this stuff out there? So we have, top 5 hands from every main event final table that we have ownership of. Every season of high stakes poker, we have a top 5 hand. So, if you're a big fan of the game and you're not a PokerGo subscriber, we're still giving you all that stuff to watch for free. And then, of course, we hope you subscribe to watch all the live stuff. And we're taping a new season of high stakes poker this weekend, so it's really exciting. The lineups will blow your mind. I'm not one to brag, but, and by the way, we always have this thing at PokerGo. We always say. We don't get happy about our lineups until the butts are in the seats, because we know how poker players are. They're very flaky, but if they show up in the way that it's lined up right now, it's going to be an amazing season. But I won't drop any name, not even a single one. But look for a release of those episodes in the coming months. Those are not live shows; they are cut down episodes to give you that authentic feel. Commentary by Gabe Kaplan and AJ Benza, all that jazz. So it's going to be more of that old school feel that you were used to from high stakes poker, as opposed to the live streams that we do for other shows. Now, to your second question about what it takes to put all this together, the scale of this stuff is enormous, which is why people sometimes underestimate how hard it is to pivot on the fly, just because how much planning and preparation goes into creating a single stream. Now, we can argue and discuss why certain events are streamed and why certain events are not for the World Series of Poker, but ultimately it comes down to, we have to sit down at the start of the series and draw up a plan from start to finish. Main event is pretty simple. We're covering every day, so that you don't have to think about that all that much. But for the other events, you want to give people a little bit of everything. Some people want Omaha. Some people want stud. Some people want, the mixed game. Some people want the big bet, no limit, or whatever it may be. So we're trying to do an offering, a little bit of everything across the board to give everyone something to watch, and also keeping in mind that some people might not watch it live, but if they catch it in maybe a few months down the line, they type in Omaha on PokerGo. And if we decided to skip all the Omaha events because Negreanu was going deep in every tournament and those were all Hold'em, then people are like, well, you're only showing Hold'em. So you can't really win in that discussion, but it's a big ship that's hard to turn in that ocean of content. So that's why sometimes some things aren't streamed. And to give a very direct example, when we ended up streaming Phil Hellmuth's bracelet win without hole cards, that was a day off for our crew. So we were like, we have no way to do this because our crew is off today. And keep in mind, we use the same crew for every single stream. So these people are working like a lot of hours across the whole stretch of the World Series of Poker. So that was Maury Eskandani basically, trying to make something happen so people could watch it. And I think what we ultimately delivered was not of the quality that we would want a normal stream to be, right. But at least we gave the audience a chance to watch Hellmuth in all his Hellmuthisms, collect a 16 bracelet. And then later, I had him on my podcast and we put a really cool video up on our YouTube channel where he discusses the win, and we showed footage of him winning, and we sort of synced it up, and that turned out pretty cool. So
yeah, that was a really tough situation. I think you couldn't really win, right? Like if you didn't show it, people were going to be mad. But if you show it, the poker world's always going to complain about something, I guess. And I think PokerGO gets to be the lightning rod in some of those experiences. But I just thought the coverage was just amazing. So I congratulations to you and to everyone who kind of pulled it off.
No, I appreciate it. And I want to add something more. A lot of times people criticize PokerGO and they said, well, back in the day, everything was being streamed. And then I said, yeah, back in the day, there was a webcam on a stick, and we didn't care about the quality as much, and we didn't have the capabilities that we have now. So do you want to offer a product where half your streams are webcam on a stick and the other halves are produced? No, you want to deliver a premium product, which is what people pay for. And if you deliver a product that's not premium, then people are like, why am I paying for this? It's webcam on a stick. So it's not fair to compare those things. And we are always looking to innovate, and we're always looking to add more streams, and we're always trying to find ways to give more. But sometimes it's not very easy. It's also very costly to put these things together. And we listen to all the criticisms, and we take them all into account. And we hope to be stronger every year as far as the offerings of events, just total events, but also the way we cover them, how we cover them, and the type of attention we can give to big things happening in the moment, such as the helmet bracelet. That was a big example of that. So yeah, ultimately, we read it all. We see everything that's being posted online. It's all being discussed. And if it's possible to do something or make changes, then we definitely will.
Nice. Now, you're in kind of a unique place in the poker world. I know we only have you for a limited time, so I'm going to ask this question of you that I don't ask everybody. You're in the poker world, but you're also an observer of the poker world, and you're kind of in and out of it in the same way. So my question to you is, what does the poker world need to do better? And you can take that anywhere you like. What does the poker world need to do better?
Wow. That is a very broad question. That is hard. It's hard to answer that with picking a single thing. What does the poker world need to do better? Man, that's a tough one.
Fastball coming at you.
I think that every brand in poker needs to look at themselves and think about, how do I create the best experience for my customer in a way that they will tell their friends and family about it, and they also want to be part of that experience. So I'm talking online providers, I'm talking PokerGO, I'm talking World Series of Poker, EPT, whatever they may be. They have to look inward and say, what makes someone spend their money with me? And that, I think, is a crucial thing. And I think across the board, there are ways to improve. And I think that as long as we all keep doing that, then we'll grow the game in a healthy way. And obviously, I can only speak for PokerGO. And today was sort of like the launch day for the 2022 season, because World Series of Poker wrapped up, Thanksgiving, everybody was out of the office. This morning, I saw a lot of people face to face for the first time since the World Series of Poker ended, and it was also the first time we were all in the same room, not worrying about the next live stream or the next podcast or something along those lines. So today, innovation started with us. We've made a long list of things we want to work on for 2022. A lot of ideas were thrown around. And that's what I mean with looking inward. What can we do better? How can we innovate? How can we offer new things? And I think that, I'll give some love here to Tana from Run Good. I think they are approaching it in the right way. And I'm just quickly going to pull up our schedule. The Run Good Poker Series All-Star Pro-Am, day one on Saturday, December 11, day two on Sunday the 12th at the PokerGO studio. You can still qualify for that event. That is an innovative project. That is a big undertaking. It's going to be happening at the PokerGO studio. That is one of those things that I think Tana does so well. And that is something that did not exist prior to him thinking of that. So I think that's a good example of it. As far as the World Series of Poker goes, which we all love and aspire to play in, or to visit, or be in town for it so we can watch it. The move to Bally's, I have very high hopes for that. I think that moving to a new location makes you check everything, if you pack the car to go on vacation, yes, you got to make sure you have everything. So maybe that'll open up, new avenues for them to explore new ways of doing things. Maybe I mean, I'm not smart enough to think of ways for them to improve their product, at least not knowing what goes on behind the scenes. Same way people criticize PokerGo, I could do that too for any poker company, but I don't know what happens behind the scenes, so I can't really speak on that. But I do think that this might be an opportunity for them to try new stuff, and that's always exciting. So to answer your question, I hope it was satisfying. To answer your question in a way is that as long as we all look inwards on what we can improve as organizers, promoters, broadcasters, streamers, whatever, then I think we're in a good place. I don't think, and I hate when people do this, I don't think there's one thing that's going to make poker better. When people say, "Oh, is this good for poker?" I'm like, sure, but is it an incremental change? Probably not. A woman winning the main event is probably the last thing remaining that will really draw massive eyeballs. That will, maybe, I don't know, maybe get a little bit of a shift out of that. Maybe the total amount of female entries goes from 1% to 2%. Besides that, there's no one cure to make this game better. I think the game is very good and healthy where it is. I think that there's a lot of reasons to point out that the game is doing very well, and I think it's just about steady growth and keeping everyone happy.
I think that's a good answer, because a lot of those things are kind of necessary, but no one of them is going to be sufficient on its own to really, make the kind of transformative change that I think, could be in the future anyway. John, did you have one more question before we let Remko go?
Yeah, we had a question from Evil Roy in our chat. Is there any indication of where the WSOP edited episodes will air in Canada or other international markets?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer to that. However, I will give you an answer. Just send me a message on Twitter at Remko Rinkema, and I'll ask our programming guys to find out the answer for you, and then I'll let you know. And I believe that so they're all airing on CBS in the US, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that a year from their airing, they basically expire, and then we can also put them on PokerGo. So worst case scenario, we'll ultimately have them on PokerGo, but we already have the live streams on PokerGo anyway right now, so you could watch all that stuff already. But I'm not sure about international, so I will do some digging for you and try to find out.
Nice. Thanks, Remko. Well, you've mentioned your Twitter handle a couple of times. It sounds like that's the best way for people to get in touch with you. We'll put that link in the show notes as well. I'm excited about that Run Good event. We've sent a bunch of players down to various Run Good events, and when this episode drops, there will be just a few days left in the week before that event comes up. So where can people, do you want to pump that one more time? Just tell people how they can check that out or get more involved.
Yeah, so we are broadcasting all 3 days of that event on PokerGo, so you can watch it all on PokerGo. I would say check out the Run Good Poker Series Twitter account for all the latest. I believe they're still doing qualifiers for that event. I believe still some at the Aria, which for local Vegas players is the best place to go. And one small plug on my end. I brought the podcast back with Donnie Peters during the WSOP. We called it the WSOP podcast. Now we're thinking of calling it the Not WSOP podcast until the WSOP comes back. But we are thinking of going back to weekly episodes.
Right on.
Almost daily. I think we did 43 episodes in 55 days or something absurd like that. I had no sleep for about a month and a half, but it was all worth it. We're going to continue doing our shows. We're going to have guests like Josh Aryeh, Eliel Ezra, Jeff Losandro in the coming weeks to talk about all the stuff that they have going on. Of course, Hall of Fame, POI, and Losandro has a new book out, which I didn't know about, but I learned about that recently. I want to read that. WSB podcast, search for it on your favorite podcasting devices. Give us a chance and join our Discord channel, which I would love to have you guys on as well. We've recently started that. We got a couple people in there, and it's been a fun hanging out. And I promise this, and I always do, and I will promise it as well to your audience. If you want a tour of the PokerGo studio during an event, let me know. I give tours. I don't have a flag to walk around with, but I have a pretty loud voice, so I'll show you around, give you behind the scenes, show you the control room, show you all the stuff that goes on inside that room. So during a live event, and we have live tournaments in the studio in 2022, tons of them. Please hit me up on Twitter if you want to enjoy that, and I'll be there to guide you around.
There we go. Well, Remko. We got a lot of fun out of this today, and I think people are going to be looking you up on your Twitter handle, because that's too good a deal to pass up, I think. Now you're just going to walk them around for free. They don't got to bring you a beer or anything like that.
Tips are appreciated but not required. If I would take tips and beers, I would be an alcoholic. So let's go that route. But if you want me to bring me something fun from wherever you're traveling from, I do appreciate it. But no, nothing is necessary. I just love doing it. I'll be at the studio for those events anyway. And if people love the game as much as I do, and if they want to come to the studio to check it out, I promise you, it's a very unique space. There's nothing like it in poker. And it gives you a better understanding of what goes into creating a show like the ones that we do.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight and for taking us behind the curtain and sharing your story with us and giving us some access. The real Jim Gibson in the chat says he likes the un-WSOP. So just factor that in for your naming choices.
I will look into that. Thanks, guys, so much. Whenever you guys want to have me on again, please let me know. I will probably have some behind-the-scenes high-stakes poker stories once we're able to announce those lineups. Fingers crossed, everyone shows up. But
no chance, zero chance.
There's a zero chance they all show up. That's true. Either way, it's going to be a good time. Stay tuned.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, Remko. All right, well, we'll hear what our friend Jonathan Little has to say about what's going on here, and then we'll catch up on the back half of the pod.
Have you ever wondered whether you should call a preflop raise or 3-bet instead? What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it or do you just call? What do you do with ace-king when you miss the flop? Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/recpoker right now.
And folks, if I hear that you've been guessing or stressing, there's going to be a problem. So really just go to pokercoaching.com/recpoker and sign up today. And if you don't like what Jonathan Little's got to share, he will give you your money back. So do go and take advantage of that. Well, that was awesome. I wanted to have Remko on the show for a while. And of course, it's been so busy with the series and everything coming up. That was a lot of fun. And he is a really fun guy in real life too, and very generous with his time and that sort of thing. Any thoughts right off the bat?
I really think he's one of the most genuinely passionate people about poker. I mean, that's one of the things he has in common with, I think, Chad Holloway is also that way, where, they'd be involved with poker even if it wasn't part of their job. They'd be playing it or, following it or all of that type of stuff. And I think it really comes through in everything that he does.
Yeah. And that's the Rec Poker way, isn't it? Yeah, Chris.
The daily podcasts they were doing, I couldn't keep up with them all because I was watching too much of the coverage, but I did listen to some of them. They're really good. The interview with Karai Aldemer is great, and they talk about some specific spots. So I'll just give a plug for that as well. And he's just a really good host.
And Chris, I know we have to set you loose free because we're recording the monthly seminar in just about half an hour or so. So why don't you give us the update on what's going on in member community land before we say goodbye?
Well, we're about to record a seminar, which I think will be out by the time this episode comes out, about PKOs. So we'll be looking at a table full of PKOs for the seminar for December. And I'm pretty excited about it. Taylor Moss is going to join us. As always, we're going to get Dara O'Kearney to look at a spot. And then, so that's going to be the December one. And then we're going to be really thinking about the 2022 schedule fairly soon. So stay tuned. There may be some news coming. We're trying to think about how we're going to run the seminars in the coming year.
Cool. It's been such a treat. Premium members get to play against each other in these simulated games, and then Dara O'Kearney and Chris Jones pick a few spots and break down the play of our members. So if you're a member at Rec Poker and you'd like to get your play analyzed by Dara freaking O'Kearney, by all means, just join us in the monthly seminar recording and get some feedback there. That's awesome. And I know you've got the focus as well on the second Wednesday of every month. Last time, I think we used Poker Tracker 4 to review some hands from a recent tournament win. That was
cool. And this we've been looking at the Inside the Mind of the Pro series, and we may return to that, but we may also do the next one. I'm thinking we might do a little bit of of a solver GTO plus kind of exploration too. So I'm kind of two minds where to go there, but we'll see. We always get into some sort of rabbit hole.
It's true. Well, if you're listening, if you want to join the fun, get a free community account at rec.poker. And over on your left, you'll see this red bar with a bunch of different icons on it. One of them is groups. Go click on that and go join some groups, folks, because we get a lot out of forum posts between the groups. We message within the groups. We have events within the groups. And it's a great way to pool our learning and to learn together. And there's a group out there for every type of poker activity you're interested in, every style of learning, all our different kinds of learning and discussion events. So go join a group and find people that want to learn the way you want to learn. And then you can all learn together, whether it's the seminar, the focus, the book study, all of our individual Wrecking Crew members' own study groups and stuff like that. It's just, there's a wealth of information available there, and it just is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. John and Rob, what's going on in your areas of Rec Poker Nation?
Do you want us to both talk at the same time?
Ideally, I was kind of setting you up to fail there, wasn't I?
Okay, then in that case, Rob, keep talking and I'll...
Why don't you go first, Rob? I know we're getting close to the end of Michael Aceveto's Modern Poker Theory.
Yeah, we hope so. We're getting there.
We hope so.
It's been a long...
Well, it's only been 4 years since you started, I think.
Yeah, we started back in 2012, I think. What, about 9 years? So, yeah, it's... No, we're doing it every first and third Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time. It's a Zoom meeting, and it's open to all premium members can come and join, and we talk over the various chapters. I think by the time you hear this, we'll have gone through everything about post-flop play on the flop, and we'll be getting into post-flop play on the tournament and then into the end game. So we are getting close to the end of the book, and we've gone through it pretty extensively, had a lot of good conversation, and learning how do we apply all of this learning that we have to our actual games that we play on a day-to-day basis. And that's where a lot of the discussion leads to. So it's kind of good. It's definitely worth coming and joining the conversation. And if you can't, you can always catch up. Go to the group, like Jim said, the groups in Rec Poker, and there's a group for the book study, and we've got all of the videos there from the past sessions. And not only that book, but any of the books that we did prior are all there. So you can get it caught up on where we've been, what we've done, and where we're going.
That's going to be great. And I know it's almost time to start thinking about what the next book will be. So if you're listening out there and you have a favorite poker book or one that you think other recreational players might benefit from, why don't you send us a tweet? You can tweet us at RecPoker and at Rabman50. Isn't that right, Rob? And
that's correct.
And that'd be because he's Rabman50 everywhere, you see.
Yes.
So that would be a good way to get it on our radar. Maybe we could do that book next. Or if it's a book that you've not read or you found intimidating or you've been putting off starting, send us a tweet. Maybe we'll put it in the book study and you can get a guided tour from our Zen master. All right, John, what about in home game land? I know we've got the heads up game coming soon too. Yeah, we do. We have, well, I'll start with those. So we're just about ready to have our end of the year TOC for the No Limit Hold'em series, and we're going to have the final heads up event that will earn you a spot in Marek Madness. And of course, we'll have our TOC series for whoever was a November winner. And we have now our November winners. John Bensky got his third nightly victory for the year. Nice. East Coast Bitter Ben, his second. Oh, I was so close. We were heads up for that one, but he had the soul reads and he took me out to the shed. That was it. Nice win, Ben. Then we have J.S. Edom, Jeff S., J. Sedum. I don't know what we decided last time. I remember Rob knew how to do it.
We were saying J.S. Sedum, but I was thinking that his name is J.S., so maybe it's just Jeff Sedum. Maybe that's his actual name.
All right.
Yep.
We'll try
All right.
Jay Sedum.
Jay
He got a
Sedum.
second nightly victory, and we'll probably have this same conversation the next time he has one as well. Trey 371. Thomas Pena got his 6th nightly victory for the year.
Done, Trey.
Digging 8 Graves
Mm-hmm.
got his 3rd or her 3rd nightly victory for the year.
Yeah, they're on
Fergie
tear.
56. Kim
Fergie
Kilroy got her 11th
Oh my
nightly
God.
victory for the year.
That's approaching Kiki levels of dominance.
That is. It'll be interesting. I mean, if she's gotten 11 nightly, there are other series, although I don't think she plays the international too much.
No, I see your point, though. Yeah.
But she could give him a run for his money there.
Mm-hmm. Dark horse.
Chad McBean won the mixed series this week.
He got the podcast Run Good bump there. Comes on the show, boom, gets himself this bronze pin. Way to go, Chad.
Jasper Jr., Patrick Berry.
Love that guy.
6th international victory.
That's awesome.
Evil Roy CA, David
in the house. Evil Roy.
8th international victory.
What?
And MN Ted Philip Fuhrer got his 2nd LPP victory. So be sure to contact Jim at rec.poker and you will get your free month, 2nd free month actually.
And who did he
Learn
beat?
Pro Poker.
Who did he beat?
Who did he beat? I don't remember that right now.
Oh, I think it was somebody that's near and dear to this podcast. Mr. Fredland, I believe.
Is that the heads up? He got Steve in the heads up. So this week, Steve and I both
heads up. Right?
Yeah, he had a really. Steve and I both lost heads up this week.
I did too. To Digging 8 Graves.
Oh yeah, right.
I was heads up with him earlier this week.
So it's a little early Christmas present to us. We get room to work on. Yeah, no kidding.
Massacred by the members. They're killing us.
Mm-hmm. Only a matter of time.
I just wanted to relay, I have confirmed that it was indeed Rec Poker Steve. Although some of the other top 10 were strong players, so I don't think you should take anything away from MN Ted on that victory.
We've got some great comments in the chat here. Jim Gibson says we start calling this the Bridesmaid podcast. I think you're onto something there. Jim. And Evil Roy, who we just announced as being a winner for one of those on international events on Saturday. He says that Dara O'Carney's new book is on his Christmas list. That is a smart move, my man. There's a lot of good stuff in there, too. I had a chance to kind of flip through it while we were talking a couple months ago, and I'm excited for that. All right, well, I see Dave and Jim and Martha are packing up and getting ready to get out of here. I guess there's one more thing I should say. If we're changing the way we're doing our pins a little bit now. So premium member, we've always had the Rec Poker pins, and we've always made them free for premium members. And we're still going to do that. But what we're going to do is we're just going to mail them out once a year. It's just too complicated. There's so many pins, there's so many orders and shipping labels and stuff like that. And Steve does all this stuff by hand. So just to make it easier for Steve, if you're a premium member, every January, we're going to take all the pins that you've earned up until that point that you haven't received, and we'll just mail them out to you. If you are not a premium member, then you should go anytime you want. You can go to the Rec Poker shop, and you'll see in the merch section there, you'll see pins. What we're doing is, if you're not a premium member, we're going to charge you $20 just for the shipping and handling and stuff. The pin itself is free, and it doesn't matter if you're getting 1 pin or 20 pins. Just to make it easier for us to get everything together and to mail it out, because we're kind of taking a bath on mailing these things all over the country and internationally, let alone. So go to the shop, and you can select pins from the merch department and enter your mailing info. And it costs $20. It's just for shipping and handling, and we'll send you out all the pins that you've earned, that you have not earned, that you haven't received so far. So it's not like you have to do this every year or every time you win a pin or anything. But if you've got a pin that you'd like sent, we're still sending it out free with the merch for our final merch order, and we're sending it out free to premium members. So if you don't have any merch coming and you don't want to join premium, even just for a month, you can go and claim your pins through the shop there for $20. But I will tell you again, Rec Poker Premium membership is only $15 a month. So if you want to save $5 on your pins, maybe just become a premium member for a month. And again, folks, you can get your first month for only $5 if you use the code RecPoker when you sign up. So I'm just saying, maybe if you want to join for $5, use the code RecPoker, see what we got going on here for a month, get your pins ordered to you. I would recommend January be the month that you choose, because there's a good chance Steve will mail you out your pins at that point. And if you have any questions about that, you can always just email me, jim@rec.poker. And, we're trying to do everything right, and we're trying to make all the right decisions and trade-offs when it comes to this stuff. So if you feel like there's something we could be doing better, or that we're not, handling every aspect of what we do here at Rec Poker perfectly, I take that very seriously. And so does John and Rob and Steve and Chris and Taylor and Mark and Andrew and Chad and everybody else who makes the wheels move around here. So don't be shy. The only thing we like more than constructive criticism is just unbounded glee. So either one of those are great to receive in an email. So really don't be shy. All right. Well, any other thoughts for our audience before we send them on their way with the dulcet strummings of, actually, I'm not sure. One of Steve's friends, I think, does the outro music, but it makes me smile every time I hear it. So,
well, as we are entering the holiday season, after you saying that, I think we should wish everyone unbounded glee.
We should be so lucky, John. We should all be so lucky. I like that note. Well, I want to thank Evil Roy, Jim Gibson, and Martha for hanging out in the chat. Rob and John, and of course, Remko himself. Remko Rinkema. All right,
and
everybody.
Chris.
And Chris. All right, thanks. Thanks, John. See you later, guys.